How's it going, everybody? This is Cameron White with White Light Astrology, giving you guys your January 2019 horoscope for Scorpio. Happy New Year, Scorpio. I hope, well, this year should be better for you. Let's see. I think this month, though, is going to be really interesting because you have this, where you have, Capricorn season starting, we have the Saturn stuff going on, the South Node stuff, and it's all happening in your third house, which is such a interesting place for all this stuff to happen. I do think that things are relatively going to be in a better position, like things are going to be way more positive, especially after your whole Venus retrograde over your ascendant thing. However, I do think things are going to be just a little bit more on a positive note, depending on how you use it. So let's go into it. Starting off on January 1st, we have Mars ingressing into Aries. So Mars has been in Pisces in your 5th house, where it's been, Mars has been in your 5th house where it's kind of like, all right, what do you want? What are you trying to pursue? What do you want to detach from? The 5th house is like children, love, romance, art, creativity. And when you have Mars right there where he's looking to sever and cut, but he's also looking to accomplish, where he's looking to do something, he's in the sign of Pisces where it's kind of hard for him to figure out exactly what that is, and he has to go on like his own soul's mission. And as he's been in your 5th house where things have been kind of, changing, trying to understand what you want, as Mars goes into Aries, where this is his home sign, where he can do Mars things, he can accomplish things, he can do exactly what he wants to do, he's going to go into your 6th house, where your 6th house is also Mars's joy. He likes to be in the 6th house. The 6th house is all about routine, your work environment, where you're employed, your sense of service to this world, has to do with your health and your routines and your day-to-day habits. And as Mars goes into Aries, into your 6th house, it's gonna kick off this new year with like, all right, like, what is my routine? Where is my health at? What do I need to achieve? What do I need to go for? Are you signing up for a gym membership? Are you, changing your, lifestyle, your eating style? Are you looking for healthier habits? Are you looking to do more in your day-to-day life? And I think Mars in Aries is gonna be really good for this area, where if you want to tackle health issues, or if you want to, a lot of people do New Year's resolutions along health lines, this is a great time to really do that. As well with the 6th house, when it comes to employment and your sense of service, it's like you're going to feel like you want to accomplish more, you want to do more, you want to take on more work, and you're ready to kind of do it. So Mars in your 6th house is going to be pretty fun for the most part, and it is going to be pretty powerful. And also on January 1st, we have the Sun conjoining Saturn in Capricorn, and this is where the theme of everything is really going to come in, because as the Sun hits Saturn, we're talking about Capricorn, we're talking about Saturn, he's in his home sign. The Sun hitting Saturn is like resetting the synodic cycle with the Saturn and the Sun. This is resetting that Saturn energy. We're taking on new commitments. We're taking on new challenges. We're taking on new problems and tasks. And as the Sun hits there, we're kind of like resetting all of these new intentions around it in a sense. And this is in your 3rd house. And the 3rd house has a lot to do with how you speak, how you write, how you communicate. It's very mercurial in the sense of how you can kind of connect it, but the 3rd house has more to do with the mundane sense of like the physical sense. The 3rd house also has to do with your siblings. It also has to do with your local environment, like your immediate community, like your neighbors. The 3rd house also has to do with education. The 9th house has to do more with higher education, but the 3rd house could be learning something new. And as the Sun hits Saturn in your 3rd house, I think this really comes down to, okay, all these new tasks that you want to do, all these new accomplishments and these problems, like, how do you have to handle these things and how do you really have to go about it? And as the Sun hits Saturn, I think this is just kind of setting the tone of like, all right, the new challenge, the new tasks are here, and they're ready for you to really, start to consume. Moving forward, though, on January 5th, we have the new moon and solar eclipse in Capricorn. And we're going to talk more about the South Node, and I mean, I'm not really going to count this too much as an eclipse because we're still really far away, even though it is in the same sign. We're going to talk about the South Node in Capricorn in a little bit, but I do want to talk about this new moon in Capricorn, because as the Sun hits Saturn, where it's like, new challenges, new problems, new disciplines, new responsibilities, and new commitments arise in the area of, siblings, of your, your immediate environment, your neighbors, writing, education, how you speak, how to utilize the things that you have. The 3rd house has a lot to do with utilization. as we have this new moon here, this is kind of resetting those intentions. This is putting the focus on it. This is putting the light on it, knowing that, you know, what does moving forward look like? What do you need to address? What do you need to establish? What do you need to write down? What, you know, how do things need to be structured and framed and, you know, kind of framed out? So this new moon is going to be kind of like, okay, it's time to focus on what am I doing? On the same day, Mercury is going to enter Capricorn. Where Mercury being in, you know, second house in Sag, where it retrograded, was kind of like, you know, where's my money? What am I doing with my money? What do I want? X, Y, and Z. Mercury going into the third house is kind of, in Capricorn, is kind of like, okay, now that I understand, you went through Mercury and Sag, going through your second house, now it's in your third house where it's about understanding, it's about communicating, it's about expressing, it's about really getting things down and crossing your T's and dotting your I's. As this is in Capricorn, you know, like I guess the theme of like seriousness, of accomplishment, of commitment, responsibility is just going to be more present, especially as Mercury's in Capricorn. It's going to feel a lot more efficient and easier as far as your mindset goes to handle all those type of things. Moving forward a couple days later, on January 7th, we have Venus entering Sagittarius. So Venus finally gets out of your first house. I'm sure you've kind of enjoyed it, but I'm also sure you haven't enjoyed it because she was retrograde and it's her detriment. But as Venus goes into Sagittarius, into your second house, this is like money coming in, or maybe you know, I feel like Venus in Sagittarius is like buying things from a foreign land that you really like a different, you know, outfit or something from a foreign place or from a different culture or something like that. But Venus going into your second house is going to do a lot of good things for things like money, things like possessions, what you own, what you have, your assets. So I think Venus in your second house, you know, you're putting all this commitment in. You have Mars going into Aries. You're doing all this work. Venus going into your second house is like more money. Like now you're starting to value your money. Now you're starting to value that income. Now you're starting to value just what you can do with your money as well. Because this is Sagittarius. This is about, you know, exploring. This is about learning. This is about adventuring off. So on the same day, we have Uranus going direct in Aries as well, which Uranus, you know, explosions, you know, big ups and downs, things like that. As he goes direct in your sixth house in Aries, this is kind of like having the forward movement to like, okay, I want to do this, I want to do that. Having that explosive energy to make changes, to liberate yourself from past habits or just things that aren't really working for you anymore. So I just really think that that's going to be a really positive time. Moving forward though, on January 11th, we have Mercury conjoining Saturn, where Mercury is basically wanting to like yell out the message of Saturn, but it's more of like coming in through a fax because it's Capricorn. You're basically going to get a fax from Saturn that says, hey, it's time to buckle down and it's time to get serious. Like, with Mercury hitting Saturn, Saturn's in your third house, like what is restraining you, what is holding you back, as well as how do you need to handle things in a mature, more disciplined sense, how can you really utilize and concentrate your energy to get the most out of it. Saturn's basically sending you a fax that says, get to it, it's time, this is what you need to realize, this is what's holding you back, this is what you need to concentrate your energy on. This is what sucks, and this is something that you can do to take your mind off of it, and this is how you should address it. So that's going to be really fun if you like Saturn things. However, I do think it is going to be a very serious tone of like, hey, like this is how you really need to be utilizing your energy and focusing your time on things. This is what's holding you back, and I think you need to maybe take a professional step away from that. So that will be kind of cool. I feel like that's what you guys kind of need right now is some like, you know, not discipline for sure, but like a straight path, like somewhere to go. Anyway, as we move forward, a few days later, we have the sun hitting the south node. And I wanted to wait to talk about the south node now because I think the sun hitting the south node is going to be extremely illuminating. When it comes to these third house things where it's going to feel like you have a lot of weight on your shoulders with what you have to accomplish, what you need to kind of do, you know, dealing with your maybe your neighbors or your house or your, you know, siblings, whatever it is, the south node and the sun hitting it is kind of like, you're going to feel like you just look back in your past. Like, what has worked for you in the past where you were dealing with situations like this, where it came to having to discipline yourself and really do Saturn type things? Look back in your past and go, what worked back then that you can really utilize now? How can you use what you learned back then, and how can you use that and address that in a similar sense that's going to get you out of the situation that you're in? How can you, it's just about realizing what you did in the past that you may be able to make a connection to. We'll talk about more of that in a second when Mercury hits the south node. However, moving forward, on January 18th, we have Venus trining Mars. And so as Venus trines Mars, where Venus is in your second house, you know, what are you doing with your money? You're going to feel like you're spending it, but maybe you're going to buy yourself a vacation somewhere or go travel or do something. As Venus trines Mars, where Mars is like in your sixth house, you know, you have the accomplishment, you have the routine, you're getting everything done. Venus trining it is like you're going to get rewarded for that. Like, now, what does that mean? Because you've been putting in these efforts, because you've been putting in this work, what are the opportunities you can do with that now, and where are you really receiving that value? And I think that's going to be another big thing, is really realizing where you're taking in that value and where that value is really coming from. So realize that. That's going to be really, really cool. However, 2 days later, we have the big day of January, and that's January 20th. We have the sun going into Aquarius. It's going to be going into your 10th house. I mean, not your 10th house, your 4th house. And then we have the full moon in Leo, which is a total lunar eclipse. And we have Mars squaring Saturn. So there's a lot going on this day. I mean, also Venus is squaring Neptune, but I don't, for one, I don't have time to talk about it, but two, these other things are way more important than that. Full moon in Leo, total lunar eclipse. As the sun goes into your 4th house, where it's focused on, okay, your family, your home life, your private life, where you're centering yourself, has more to do with your immediate family, your parents. The light and the focus is kind of on that area. We have this full moon in Leo that's going on in your 10th house of your career. And this is that last eclipse in Leo, where this is really one big last bang of like, where are you getting the validation? Where are you getting the attention? Where are you getting the love and the respect and the admiration that you need in the career sense? And where is that coming from? The moon in Leo being in your 10th house, that's like, oh, a career advancement all of a sudden, one last big thing where you get noticed or recognized for something. The moon in Leo in this eclipse is going to be realizing and kind of ending the chapter of these Leo eclipses of like, what really happened for you in terms of your life and the bigger picture of how things looked on the outside? What happened with your career? What happened with your work? You know, how have you grown? How have you achieved things? And I think as the sun goes into Aquarius, where this is your 4th house of centering yourself in your home life and your family life, I think this is just going to be kind of like a really big perspective on the dynamic between what you're how you really center yourself, your home life, your private life, you know, things that happen inside versus what has gone on the outside, what has been accomplished on the outside, what has come to you from the outside. And I also really think that this is going to be really good for things like career, things like, you know, what you're kind of being publicly recognized for. And I think this is just going to be a good a good acknowledgement that you can kind of need. So that's going to be really dope. Also, we have Mars squaring Saturn though. So as Saturn is in your 3rd house, where it's about accomplishment, you know, you have all this work to put on, and Mars is in Aries, it's like, you may feel really drained. You might have put a lot on your shoulders. Mars in Aries is like, you have a lot going on, and what needs to happen is concentration. You have this 3rd house where there's a lot of things to express, there's a lot of things to communicate, there's a lot of stuff you got to tackle and take on. Mars in Aries, there's only 24 hours in a day. Like, don't get me wrong, you can work all 24 hours, but there's only so much time. I think this comes down to concentrating your energy on what do you value most and what is worth it more. Concentrating your energy on what's going to help you, what's going to positively influence you. Like when something is draining you, when something is no longer working and you keep investing time into it, I think this is going to be a big time to look at where are you spending your time and where what are the rewards that you're getting for it. So as we have this Mars-Saturn square, it's going to be like you have a lot on your plate and you've got a lot to tackle and you only have so much time to do it, you're going to feel overwhelmed. However, this really comes down to focusing your energy on what's important, what's not important. Or focusing your energy on what's important and realizing what's not important and really trying to adapt and overcome, bring things together, you know, get help with stuff, you know, have people help you if you can delegate work to other people. But I think that's just going to be the major theme. However, moving forward, the next day, we have Venus conjoining Jupiter in your 2nd house, which is like, cool, money's coming in, you have possessions, maybe you bought something new, maybe, you know, you're looking to do something with your money, invest your money, whatever it is. A lot of this has to do with money, assets, possessions, what you own. And Jupiter is in your 2nd house. You know, things are coming into you, you're starting to own and possess more, you're starting to look for more. Venus is there where she's bringing a lot of value here, she's bringing a lot of, she's basically like wanting you to make money make it a lot and spend it on really cool things. And as Venus hits Jupiter, I think this is really realizing, what, new ideas about beliefs around money and around income and around what that can really look like and what opportunities, can you really take to get you to that next level. And so I think Venus hitting Jupiter is going to be really positive for that area, and it's just requiring you to really look at all the possibilities, look at where the value is really coming in, and understand that you have more to learn. There's more out there for you to experience, and it's just about going out there and kind of achieving that and looking for it, I guess. On January 21st, too, we have Mercury conjoining the South Node. So this is what we were talking about earlier with the Sun hitting the South Node, where this is kind of about, hey, maybe what worked in the past. I was talking about this in the Gemini video, but it's kind of like if you guys watch football, football coaches, they replay for their players, past games, and they highlight what worked, what didn't work. And Mercury hitting the South Node is like watching those games, rewatching the old videos and writing down what worked, what didn't work, making up new plays, making up new ideas based on that. And so as Mercury hits the South Node, where, Mercury's also projecting the voice of the South Node, what was in the past that worked, really looking at that. This is going to be a big time to be like, if you want to take on more of this work and really address this, like, look back in your past and see what worked for you then. And try to do that now. See what you can come up with. Be creative about it. So that is going to be really, that is going to be a really big deal. So I would like to advise you on that. Like, as things are going to feel like, like you got like I said, you got a lot of pressure. You got a lot of things to do. How can you look back in your past? What did you do before when you were in the situation before, and what worked, and how can you address that? Because things are good. There's just a lot of going on at the same time. Then after that, on January 23rd, Mercury will go into Aquarius, into your 4th house. The focus Mercury is wanting to project is, family stuff, home stuff, family life, your private life, like your parents. Mercury is wanting to focus on there, and we'll talk about more of that in a second. But after that, January 25th, Mars trines Jupiter, where Jupiter's in your 2nd house, exploring money. What are your beliefs about value? What are your beliefs about, money and your income and what you own, and what are you wanting to do with it? What do you want more of? As Mars trines Jupiter, where Mars is fucking working hard. I mean, your guys are Scorpio risings, or Scorpio suns. You're already very much in tune to Mars, and Mars is like on fire throughout this month. And as he trines Jupiter, Jupiter's getting a lot of stuff from that. It's like, here's all of my value, here's all of my possessions, like, let's get more of that from all of this work. Like, Jupiter's making Mars work to bring in some more money. And as Mars is trining Jupiter, this is kind of like realizing how that hard work can pay off and seeing what other opportunities are there, realizing your value around your time. You're starting to value your time more than starting to value, valuing your time more than valuing your, money. And I think that's also going to be a big thing of like, where are you putting your energy and what is that really coming out and looking like as it manifests? So that's going to be really cool. Again, more positive stuff for you guys. Lucky you. Like, all of this stuff just so happens to line up in your chart to make it somewhat easy. But anyway, last thing in January that happens is the Mercury Sun Cazimi. That's happening at 8 degrees Aquarius in your 4th house. And I think this has a lot to do with kind of like, when we were talking about that Saturn stuff in your 3rd house of like accomplishment and doing, this is still Saturn stuff because this is Aquarius, but this is your 4th house of your centered, like, where you centered yourself, your parents, your private life, where you live, your home, where you're from, your ancestry. And Mercury and the Sun, or I should say Mercury going Cazimi and, getting pierced by the sun, where Mercury's downloading information, getting things in. I think this is really understanding how to connect all of the dots to really center yourself in all of this stuff, I think this does have a lot to do with your parents and stuff like that. I think those themes are really going to come up. But this is really just about connecting all the dots to really address situations and things that are being illuminated in that area. So it's very mercurial. It's very much communicating the right message. It's kind of like you looked in your past, you did all this work. Well, all of a sudden now you're like, oh, well, I can also did what I learned there and how I handled this in this situation as well. And that's kind of January. To kind of end it on a weird note, January is going to be, like, for you guys kind of have it easier than most people, but you're going to be working really hard this month. And it's going to be really exciting because I'm sure you're ready to do it and you're ready to do more things. So anyway, with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching and liking and sharing and commenting and subscribing and sharing. And again, thank you guys so much, and I'll be seeing you guys next month.